When a startup exits through acquisition or liquidation, who gets paid first? During any liquidity event, right, such as acquisition, merger, or just simple liquidation, a clause known as liquidation preference determines the order in which investors are paid and the amount they receive before founders and employees participate in the remaining proceeds. Hi, I'm Preksha from Campus Fund, and today we're breaking down liquidation preference clauses that you see in different term sheets and transaction documents. This is a part of our larger series where we are demystifying the legal jargon that you come across while raising your first round of investment. So let's get into it. Why does liquidation preference as a clause exist, right? It exists so that it can give investors priority to recover their investment before common shareholders in any exit event, right? Because your investors essentially hold CCPS, not regular equity shares, so they have certain preference in different situations. And a liquidation preference is one of the more common forms of preference that your investors will have. So there are typically three kinds of preferences that work. First, and the most common one that you see in India is 1x non-participating preference. So this is where the investor gets back either one times their investment amount or their pro rata share of proceeds, whichever is higher. So the example is, let's say if you invested 10 crores in a company for 20% of the equity and the company sells for, let's say, 100 crores. So you either get back 10 crores or you get back 20% of 100 crores, which is 20 crores. So you will the investor will choose to take option B, which is 20 crores, right? Second, and a relatively lesser common one in early stage deals, especially in India, is 1x participating preference, right? So this is basically that the investor gets 1x of their money back and their pro rata share of the remaining proceeds. So if we take the same example of 10 crores for 20%, the investor is going to get back 10 crores plus 20% of the remaining, which is 90 crores. So they get back around 28 crores instead of 20 crores in your 1x non-participating preference. So this is obviously, far more investor friendly, which is also why it's very rare to see it in early stage deals as well. Third is multiple liquidation preference. This is, maybe a multiple of 2 or 3 or something else which you decide. So this is where, in simple terms, investor gets back 2x or 3x or whatever is the multiple that you've decided of their investment before others, right? It's honestly quite rare in venture deals, and it's more common in distress situations because nobody would voluntarily agree for these kind of terms unless there is a distressing situation, essentially. Now, coming to why this exists, right? From an investor point of view, liquidation preference exists because an investor is taking significant risk on unproven companies, right? So liquidation preference essentially ensures that they recover capital before founders profit, especially if the exit is not grand and it's merely modest, right? So if you are evaluating your term sheet or your transaction documents, a few things that I would recommend is that, first is that in India, the more common liquidation preference is 1x non-participating. So always see if that is the one that you're agreed upon, what has been proposed. Second is avoid multiple preferences or participating structures in early rounds. And third is understand how this affects whenever you're getting a term sheet, look at the liquidation preference clause and understand how it affects your take home in different exit scenarios so that it gives you clarity on how much the investor is actually getting and how much you are getting, right? Yeah, so that's kind of about it. In terms of why liquidation preference exists, like I said, it essentially protects investors from downside while it also allows it has room for founders to share in the upside of the company, right? It's a very standard clause. It's not punitive. It's nothing to get worried about. It's a very common clause. That said, the structure of how it is framed matters a lot. So, to determine who actually benefits most from the exit. So, do think about it before you're signing any term sheet or transaction documents. Yeah, that's about it. If you have any other questions on liquidation preference, do let me know, and I would be happy to answer them in the comments. And stay tuned because next week we'll be coming back with another clause that you see in term sheets. Thank you so much for watching.